Hello, we are the 90 Naturalists, and this is our Naturalist action plan. A little bit about us. So we're sophomores, we're roommates, we're best friends. My name is Isabella Allen. I'm majoring in global public health and minoring in biology.
My name is Lucy Moan. I'm an environmental studies major with a minor in management.
My name is Julia Bender. I'm majoring in accounting for finance and consulting with a minor in English.
So a little bit about our preliminary research. So it first was focusing on comparably sized Jesuit universities such as Fordham and Georgetown. So a little bit of context, Laudato Si was published in 2015, outlining Pope Francis' urgent call for action for the current environmental crises. So in particular, he looks at the interconnectedness of environmental, social, and economic strife. So what we found at Fordham and Georgetown was that they were utilizing Laudato Si as a foundational document, guiding all its principles, and what it allowed was to create action plans that not only had great initiatives, but also we're looking at general conversations about sustainability and justice. So building on that, we met with Professor Michael James, who gave us some insight about how BC has this really unique opportunity to not only provide the Office of Sustainability that is regulatory, composting and LED lights, but also promoting ideals such as justice, social responsibility, and overall environmental spirituality.
We then had a conversation with Bruce Dixon, and he is the previous Sustainability Program Manager, and he delved into the responsibilities, the achievements, and challenges that the office faced during his time there. And what he emphasized throughout our conversation was the challenge of student engagement and involving the whole school body into their initiatives. He compared this to his current job at Tufts, where he stated that Tufts is committed from the top down, highlighting not only student engagement, but faculty and staff engagement as well.
We then had a conversation with Professor Andres Castro Samayoa to talk about buy-in and what the conditions for buy-in are. So the conditions for buy-in at BC versus BU are going to be different. Student bodies are different. So he recommended we actually survey students to see what their priorities were. So we conducted a survey of over 60 participants, all 4 grades representing. So the first question we asked was, how familiar are you with the Office of Sustainability? And as you can see, it skewed towards 1 and 2, which was, I didn't even know there was an Office of Sustainability, indicating a lot of room for growth. We then asked students, have you ever heard of Laudato Si at all? A majority of students, 51%, said they had not. Another thing on the conditions for buy-in that we were trying to investigate was, number 1, how willing would you be to volunteer at the Office of Sustainability as just a general volunteer? And it was a normal distribution as to be expected. However, when we asked how willing they'd be to volunteer in a more defined, clear, and resume building role, like, for example, eco representative or marketing intern, they were much more willing to participate. This guided our case, and I'll hand it over to Lucy.
So we'd like to propose the reorientation of the mission statement to be central to the values of Laudato Si. With this, we've created an example of what this mission statement could look like, and here it is. Rooted in the Jesuit tradition and inspired by Laudato Si, the Office of Sustainability at Boston College is committed to fostering a culture of environmental stewardship, social justice, and ethical responsibility. The university is committed to seeking transformative solutions that honor creation, deepen our commitment to social and environmental justice, and reflect the Jesuit mission of forming men and women for others.
To directly address the challenge of student engagement, we created the role of an eco-rep. And an eco-rep is an unpaid volunteer with the responsibilities of organizing initiatives, promoting environmental sustainability on campus, and advertising the office to the student body. Now, why would students want to do this? As our survey data suggests, that students would be more than willing to fill this role if it comes with a specific title that they can put on their resume and also cater to their specific initiative. As well, there's currently limited employment opportunities within the office, so students that want to help but currently are unable to, the eco-rep provides an opportunity to do just that. So now I'm going to hand it back to Lucy, where she'll delve into the Laudato Si mission and how eco-reps are at the mission's core.
So these are the 7 pillars of Laudato Si, and I'll be going into initiatives for each of them, a little bit more in depth for those that are bolded. So for the response to the cry of the poor, our first initiative would be partnering with the Volunteer and Service Learning Center to promote local environmental initiatives such as Newton Food Pantry. So Boston College already has a relationship with Newton Food Pantry, as it is a service opportunity through the Pulse organization and we used to donate our surplus produce from our community garden to the Newton Food Pantry. But eco-reps can further this connection with Newton Food Pantry by not only engaging directly with their volunteering opportunities, but push for Newton Food Pantry to be one of the core volunteering opportunities at the Volunteer and Service Learning Center, of which none of them are central to the environment so far. Secondly, we'd like to propose that the Office of Sustainability host its own volunteer opportunities. An example of this could be partnering with Green Roots, which is an organization in Boston focusing on reversing the disproportionate climate burden on low-income communities. And for eco-reps to engage in this initiative, they could see the managerial aspect of setting up these events, as well as attending the events, reflecting on them, and then promoting it to the rest of the community through tabling, flyer making, or with reflection sections.
The sole expense of these initiatives comes from transportation costs. In the event that students do not have a personal car that they can take people to, for example, the Newton Food Pantry, this $400 figure covers Uber trips weekly to the Newton Food Pantry, as well as gas, for example, that would be needed to take to the urban marsh cleanup.
As for the ecological education pillar, the first initiative would be calling on professors to incorporate environmentalism into the classroom. This could look like keeping up with environmental law and policy, reading environmental-inspired literature, or anything else that could extend the course material to environmentalism. This would promote ecological education as a whole on the campus by engaging students in conversations with professors on the interdisciplinary nature of environmentalism. Our second initiative would be cataloging pre-existing courses. So this work can be dedicated to eco-reps who can do research onto courses that are offered every semester, and they can then advertise courses to a wider range of students to promote a varying demographic of students into environmental focused classes. And then the final initiative for ecological education would be promoting on-campus speakers. So not only could the Office of Sustainability promote other institutions' on-campus speakers, but they could bring in their own, and though it's a little bit more costly, we'd recommend that they partner with other offices or institutions in order to alleviate cost, bring a wider demographic of students to those speakers, and
the costs that come from these initiatives are from bringing in on-campus speakers. Speakers are expensive. They cost between $2,500 and $5,000, and that's on the lower end. So, as Lucy mentioned, to alleviate this cost, we suggest partnering with internal and external organizations that can split the cost with us and make it so we can have an impactful speaker while alleviating some pressure from the Office of Sustainability.
And then for the ecological spirituality pillar, our biggest recommendation is to partner with the Office of Ministry. Together they can hold spirituality and sustainability workshops and reflections, and this can be manifested as prayer or discussion sessions in which ecological spirituality can be incorporated by altering some of the language used to be more environmentally focused, as well as engaging with texts like Laudato Si, Laudato Deum, and doctrines like creation care. And then our second initiative for ecological spirituality is celebrating days like St. Francis Feast Day, which is on October 4th. So this is a day in which the entire Boston College community could celebrate the interconnectedness between religion and the environment. It would promote some of the awareness between ecological spirituality, as well as give individuals a framework, a more hopeful framework to see environmentalism, as a lot of what we see today is a little bit more different.
The best part about these initiatives is that they would be free of cost. And this is because we would be utilizing on-campus resources. These retreats can take part on a weekend on campus and have students delve into a day-long reflection on the connection between the environment and spirituality. With internal guidance from the campus ministry, this will also enhance the effect that these retreats have while having this be financially feasible for the office.
So as for the other four pillars, I'll go over them briefly just for timing reasons. For adoption of simple lifestyles, we recommend that the Office of Sustainability hold educational campaigns, likely led by eco-reps, to promote underconsumption. For Respond to the Cry of the Earth, we'd like to see Boston College affiliate with wider organizations, such as the International Sustainable Campus Network, in order to centralize some of its overarching and long-term sustainability missions. For community involvement and participatory action, we cannot emphasize enough this idea of eco-reps. We've proven that it is feasible because students are interested through a survey, as well as they are a stakeholder in every pillar that we've mentioned throughout this presentation. And then for ecological economics, we'd like to see the Office of Sustainability engage economics majors and CSOM students with case competitions such as this one. And also the Office of Sustainability can promote some of the events coming out of Boston College's Center for Corporate Citizenship, which promotes ESG and CSR initiatives.
So going into the financial feasibility of our case overall. So the office starts with a $45,000 budget for the whole year. This budget was outlined to us by Bruce Dixon, again, the previous program manager, and he divided this budget into three main responsibilities: to financially fund environmental clubs, to maintain current initiatives, and to enact its own new initiatives throughout the year. So we estimated that around 70% of this budget be devoted to financially funding clubs. This is a rough estimate, but it provides a great benchmark for the office's budget, and it provides flexibility to either add to or take away from this budget, which I'll go into a little later. We estimate around $3,000 is required for the maintenance of current initiatives. This includes the contract with the beekeeper that maintains the beehive on top of Fulton Hall, the maintenance of the on-campus garden, and supplying garden tools to the environmental clubs throughout the year, as well as assisting landscapers with the McMullen Museum green space. That leaves us $10,500 left over in our budget. The initiatives that Lucy went into, as well as the ones she briefly mentioned, those costs add up to around $6,000 to $8,000. So again, we have flexibility here. We have the ability to enact even more initiatives or add to the budget that we've divided for the devotion to clubs. So this is a great investment for the office. It fits within their budget, it increases their impact overall, and it takes into account their current responsibilities.
So for a few conclusions, I'm going to go over a timeline. If this was to happen in an academic year, we would suggest in September to October bringing together students, faculty, and staff to discuss what they want in a Laudato Si action platform and overall mission statement. In October, we would recommend writing and publicizing this updated mission statement. In November, December, we would work with the current work study programs to develop the roles of eco-reps, whether that be food sustainability intern or public health intern. Then, from January to May, we would track the success in a trial semester. I'll go into a little bit about how we would assess those benchmarks. And finally, in May, we would assess the success and make changes to ensure the longevity of the program. We thought of a few challenges and solutions. So first, as Julia mentioned, we're working with some unknown financial data and some budget limitations. But what we've tried to prioritize here is focus on low-cost, high-impact programming that's utilizing already existing structures at BC, like spirituality retreats that are occurring almost every month. For skewed data, we understand that people are much more likely to actually indicate they volunteer than follow through. However, we believe we've defined the role of eco-reps to offer such real resume-building experience that all students from all disciplines would want to engage. Then finally, for feedback and impact tracking, defining benchmarks might be difficult. However, we believe through digital surveys, feedback forums, and monthly check-ins with these eco-reps, we'd be able to really see if the eco-rep program is successful and overall mission statement revitalization is successful. So we want to leave you with this. I want this to be something that all students do, whether they're environmental club students, or in the School of Management, or studying law. It doesn't matter who you are, you can care about the environment. This was from Mr. Dixon, the previous program manager. Thank you so much.
So thanks so much for your presentation. I think that's, I really enjoyed it. I like the incorporation of Laudato Si into it. What I didn't really get a clear idea of is how these eco-reps might interface with existing interns. Like, what would that relationship be like?
So there are currently 4 existing interns at the Office of Sustainability. They're all paid positions. And we've just demonstrated that there are a lot more students who are willing to work with the Office of Sustainability, but because of their limited budget for student interns, they can't really. So EcoRep is kind of just like a lower level intern, possibly facilitated by the current interns at the Office of Sustainability, and more so just like volunteering positions, obviously not paid, and maybe just like a lower commitment level weekly, depending on the number of EcoReps.
And this could be comparable, but how we have like RAs on campus, but additionally a lower level step is the residential housing group, which provides like services, some volunteering, some activities, but isn't that higher level commitment as the RAs.
I also just want to add in a clarification. The budget for the office does not include work-study students. So if that provides some clarification as to why we didn't include the work-study students in our budget.
So there's a lot of like workshops and reflections and pulling in these the eco reps. How do we translate all of that into a specific goal, like cutting down on CO2 or making our reusable, better reuse of items or things like that? How do you go from the additional labor and capability in all the workshops to hitting those goals?
Well, I think what we wanted to hit on with this presentation is that the Office of Sustainability is already doing that. I think it was this past year that we were like first in the net zero competition.
Yeah, Race to Zero Waste. We were first in the past 2 years. So even keeping that initiative going, but then seeing how our mission then involves student engagement and progresses our advancements in the Race to Zero Waste even more is a great measuring tool for the success of this case.
What we were really interested in for this prompt is really engagement, and that's just something we, as people who are interested in sustainability, looking at our friends, our peers in different groups, and understanding that there's so much room to grow. So we wanted to restructure the Office of Sustainability to allow increased engagement in so many programs already occurring.
As you looked at Georgetown and Florida, like, were there anything like in particular that those institutions were doing that stood out as like that would be a good model for us?
Yeah, so Georgetown specifically does have like an eco rep type position, and something that I found interesting is that they had one specific to dorms to facilitate like dorm composting. So within the eco rep position itself, we can have different factions. We were thinking they could maybe work with specific pillars. They could work with different like organizations on campus, like maybe a Res Life, eco rep, just depending on engagement with students. But we would like to see the eco rep position as a whole be as multidisciplinary as it was at Georgetown.
Thank you, and we'll see you at 1.
Thank you so much.